So it's very good that we've seen now lots of interesting building blocks and also done a deep dive. I really enjoyed that, and everything together is a part of the demo, and it's shown now. So I hand over to Joseph for that.
You are again muted, so one more time.
Sorry.
Good
Thanks,
job.
Lars. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, thanks again. And now this presentation is the last of mine. Together with Marcus and Lars, I will present something about the co-simulation. Yes. Here's a short summary. So first we will present the decent virtual neighborhood as a motivation again for this topic. Then I will talk about some mechanisms used for the scenario, which is then stated in section 5. Afterwards, I will present 2 demonstrations, or 1 demonstration and 1 result demonstration, and give a short, some main results from the simulation, from the market simulation. Yeah, so first, Marcus, please go ahead.
Thanks, Joseph. So this is the figure we have seen recently during the slides. So this is our envisioned virtual neighborhood and how those buildings intercooperate within the district and exchanging loads, flexibilities. Also, we have those smart houses. And on the next slides, we show what we have really implemented. So we have that heat and electricity blockchain-based market. We have the Framatome virtual participants, which are introduced. Also the battery storage for a district, for a quarter. We have the VTT apartment, which was introduced by Jussi Kiliander, and how it operates. And also we have the VTT supermarket, for which we also have real data, and also the TUM apartment or the TUM office building, the floors, which was equipped with sensors and smart meters in order to provide real data. And also at Fortiss, we had the heat and cold storage demonstrator, and all those real entities and also the virtual participants were connected to our markets for flexibility sharing. And on the next slide, we'll hand over to Joseph in order to go deeply through the evaluation of our virtual neighborhood.
Yes. Again, we have this decent idea, decentralized cross-commodity market. Of course, we used the merit order mark approach or algorithm that was explained previously, and Fortiss provided an API with several functions. Here are the most important ones. We need to post the offers, so the auction knows that we are offering energy or that we're demanding energy, and we need to get the clearing after the market algorithm determined which offers have been matched with each other. Next, we will talk about some mechanisms. The first one is the outside trader. So, of course, on the market, we have we can place bids, which are demands and supplies. Here, as shown as red and blue curve. Some of them may be flexible bids, where you can make money or optimize the power system, and others are fixed needs. And by placing those on the market, you can minimize the cost with game theoretical thinking and strategies. But these fixed needs, if they are unmatched, as you can see on the right side, they need to be compensated. For example, a house can, if you need 2 kilowatt hours and you place the bid for those 2 kilowatt hours, you cannot say afterwards, okay, 1 kWh is enough, because the people inside still want to watch TV or something like that. So in our scenario, we implemented we added the outside trader, and this outside trader is always buying at low prices and selling at high prices. So from these prices for heat and electricity, we have somehow the boundaries. It does not make sense to place a demand bid higher than 30 cents per kilowatt hours, for example. The outside trader is handled outside the market loop, so every organization has to think about this this compensation mechanism on its own. And for example, the electricity would be in real life the contract with your retailer, and the heat outside trader is more like an own production. So if you really need the seed, you would then produce it on your own, but for a rather high cost, for example, here 15 cents per kilowatt hours. Next, we need to, for this 15 minutes market, we need a scheduler who loops always in these 15 minutes and takes care for timing. Of course, within these 15 minutes, the entities and market agents need to be triggered for processing. The scheduler, because it contains several market agents, gets the market clearing and incorporates the clearings at the market agents. It also triggers the forecasting of the physical models inside the market agents and the logging. Next, I want to shortly give an overview of the market agent itself. It equals an organization and, for example, contains entities. The entities are then the real physical models or things like a battery storage, a house, a PV plant, whatever. And the market agent also takes care of the offers, so there's a stack for them. The market agent distributes the scheduler's triggers to the entities, for example, the processing and the forecasting, of course. The forecasting then produces new offers for the future time slots. And another thing that the market agent does, it interprets the matches clearings that are provided by the scheduler. With several information from the offer ID and organization name, it then distributes the transferred energy to the various entities. So the models know that, or the entities know which is the set point for the very time slots. The entity, as I said, is the physical model, and therefore it contains maybe several commodities like electricity, heat, but also, for example, hydrogen is a possible commodity. And all the commodities are represented by polynomials and edges, which define the set points that are possible. And of course, the commodities track down the imbalances that have been done due to trading and stuff like that. The entity also incorporates some basic functionality as logging. And it is the parent class for the physical models. As explained, we have the heat and cold storage for fortiss or the battery storage, or some virtual models that I need to explain a little bit more. For example, the house has a fixed, or the houses that we use as virtual entities have a fixed baseline with peaks, for example, during morning hours, evening hours, and rather low or average demands in the meantime. As explained before, houses need to compensate all the unmatched bids because they are not flexible or they have fixed demands for heat, for electricity, and the forecasting would then look like this. The outcome is the bids for the commodity, and as an input value we have the consumption baseline, which is then calculated somehow to a price, and of course the amount of energy. Next we have a heat model for the houses, which comprises capacity and isolation model. The isolation model contains the indoor versus outdoor temperature, and of course this leads to a heat demand. And the capacity model is driven by a desired indoor temperature preference baseline. And if it changes, of course, the house needs to be heated up afterwards and cooled down. And as you can see, then this gives a baseline that looks like this. It is derived, or the scale is derived from the annual heat consumption and the degree days, for example. So we get the scale. It's about, in this example, about 2 kilo or 1.5 kilowatt hours at max for one market interval, which is then 6 kilowatt of power. The forecasting is more flexible than the electricity because we can use the heat capacity of the house. So not all unmatched bits are compensated from the own heat production, but there is more like a P element that compensates the baseline deviation. So here we have this the heat flexibility and the heat capacity that has been stated as a very mature measure to give flexibility to a market. Next, we have the PV generation units, and of course, as a similar class, the solar heater. The power output differs from the size of the plant and the relative sun position, which changes over day and is also depending on the geometry of the power plant. And we also implemented some simple weather forecasting. We have a weather factor, which is randomly numbered between 0.6 and 0.8 for one scenario. And in another cloudy day scenario, we have a lower weather factor, which leads to lower power outputs from the PV plant. Next, we have the EV charging station, and it is, as explained before, reservation-based. The pricing for the forecasting has or its input values is the ratio from the average to the maximum power that can be charged. So the average power is calculated if we would charge the EV to 100% within the time that we're given from the reservation. This is the average power that would be needed. And then maximum power is, of course, the maximum power that the charger can provide. So on the bottom, you can see a bidding price that corresponds with a charging interval on the top. And we altered the compensation mechanism during the simulations. In the first two simulations, we took a fixed compensation. So the state of charge baseline was, if there were unmatched bids, they were completely bought from the outside trader. And on the other side, we made a more flexible approach in simulation C and D. So there have been, again, two different scenarios for that. As explained, the market agents contain various entities. And for the scenario, we we defined some entities for each of the organizations to have a more mature scenario. For example, on the left side, we have the neighbors. So these are always houses with different additional entities, for example, EVs or PV plants. Next, we have a local business, which contains several electric vehicle charging stations and batteries. Also, a cogeneration unit and a community PV plant is installed. From Fortiss side, we another participant of the market was this heat and cold storage, who had charging intervals and discharging intervals where it offered energy to the market or demanded electricity from the market. And next we have the Tomb office, which also took part in the market, and it was based on a forecasting of the presence probability. So how likely is it that that the guys or that the students and Christian, Lars, and so on are in the office, and how much will they then use energy? How much energy will they use then? Yes, exactly. As explained before, we did different simulation runs. So simulation A and B had a strict EV charging regime, and simulation C and D had the more mature fluctuating V stuff. And during the first simulation of 3 days, simulation A, we saw that that the patterns are repeating. So we decided to go with single day simulations for simulation B up to D. So here we can see again that we varied the weather conditions during the simulation and the electric vehicle charger behavior. So here we compensate 100% of the SOC baseline, and in the later scenarios we only compensate flexible or increasing share. So now we have this short demo where a market is, or where the Framatome virtual entities are running. Of course, we have the startup of the physical models and then the processing. Afterwards, the market or the entity gets the clearing. Of course, this is only a shortened video. It would take always 15 minutes that to do one processing and stuff, processing and clearing and so on stuff, because of course the market handles everything only in 15 minutes in intervals. So this is a little bit sped up. And then we have the forecasting of the physical models with the knowledge of the clearing and the prepared offers from the entities which are posted to the market. And then we have the processing again and the logging. And this goes on. We have a processing, sorry, and again clearing, forecasting, and so on. Sorry, bidding, processing, logging, and so on. Yeah, always the same. Yeah. So yes, this takes then place every 15 minutes. Okay, after the simulation run, we have then a result. Here we have the development over the clearing times. We only consider electricity in these plots, and it is the simulation D. So we have a weather, we have a sunny weather, and the flexible electric vehicle compensation. Thanks, Lars, for plotting this video. Yeah. Okay. On the left side, on the top, we have this Sankey diagram, which shows the power flows from the units to the other units. And besides this, we have yeah, of course, the volume per clearing and the price of the clearing. And here is a PV generation stuff. Sorry, I was expecting some additional information here. Okay, as you can see, we now ran through the during the day interval, and we saw that there is a small CHP plant production only, and a high PV generation. During this interval, the batteries will be charged, and we have rather low prices, and especially during this interval, we have a high volume per clearing. So hopefully now it works a little bit better. No, sorry, next slide. Okay, during the evening, we have a low production and high prices, and the share of the CHP plant is increasing. So yeah, the CHP plant is a supplier, and the batteries are also still suppliers, but their share is decreasing because the batteries will be emptier, and then their prices, their supply prices are increasing. Next, during the night, we only have the CHP as a supplier, leading to high prices. Of course, nothing happens, so there is a low volume of market via trading, and there is no PV production at all. I will skip a little bit of this because yeah, nothing happens here. And in the end, we also have again a battery as a supplier because there is a peak price, and then the battery price is accepted again. Next, during the morning, or last but not least, during the morning, we again have a PV production. Still some, the CHP also provides some energy, but it is decreasing as the PV comes into its place. And the price are not decreasing immediately because the CHP still provides some energy at a rather high price. Okay, what is the outcome from this simulation? First, we had the idea to create some value for the autonomy for the market participants, because they can use the resources commonly. Yes, as we can see on the table on the bottom, during the sunny scenarios, which are simulation A and D, we have, of course, higher degrees of autonomy, and the sun in general had a greater influence on the electricity than on the heat autonomy. As you can see, the autonomies on the heat market are similar for all 4 scenarios, but on the electricity market, simulation B and C have a minor autonomy because they were the cloudy scenarios. And what is also remarkable, the CHP covers the PV lag partially, as can be seen on the workload. The workload is increasing, or is higher for the cloudy scenarios. Yeah, so the market regulates controls the resources automatically. Yeah, this is very cool. And another idea or another target was the peak reduction. So the idea was to have cross commodities and flexibilities to to create a value for this peak reduction, of course. We compared our market scenarios, which are in this first row here. We compared the peak powers with several standalone scenarios that happened without the market. I will not talk very much about this, but in general, PP means here peak power, and OC means own consumption. So with the peak power optimized EV charging behavior and peak power optimized battery scenario, we derived the most competitive peak power reduction for the standalone markets, or for the standalone participants. But with the market, we could even get a much better peak reduction. Yes, I think that's it from my side. I loved this work. I loved to work with you, decent colleagues. Thanks for the great time that I had during this research project. And thanks for the attention.